Why are people so afraid of the passive? In English, it's easy. Here's a formula. P equals to be plus 3. Here's what it means. To make the passive, use the verb to be with column 3. That's it. You can work it all out from there. What? You want more explanation? Okay. Well, that might have been a little too sudden. You perhaps want a little more time just to get your head around the idea that the passive voice can be as simple as that. It really is. But I'll go into a little more detail if you wish. You might remember from an earlier film, we concentrated for a while on the verb to be. Obviously, we've seen it many times since then, as it is used to operate some of the active tenses. The ones where we are thinking of time at a point, the so-called continuous tenses. With the passive, it operates every tense, so we will explore it a little further than before. First, let's build a few examples of the passive to play with. So here are some verbs in column 3 form. Invited, talked about, decided, worn, sent, pushed, and had. Here are some people. She, Kasha, everyone at number 7. And there's some things. IT, finances, the green sweater, a large parcel, the little Fiat. Here are some tenses of to be. Will be, have been, are, is, were, was, should be, would be. So, here's the passive. Since the little Fiat was accidentally pushed into the lake, finances will be talked about very carefully. She was sent a large parcel. From that moment on, the green sweater was worn every day. When it was decided that a party would be had, it was obvious to Kasha that everyone at number 7 should be invited. So, it can be seen that the passive can be easily applied in any tense. It might not always be the best thing to be used in every case, but when it is needed, it's easy. Some of you might be thinking, ouch, I'm sure some of that used the conditional, and that has not been looked at yet. True. But don't worry, it will be explained soon, and be honest, it was easily understood. Don't you agree? Before we go any further, now would be a good time to tell you the other reason I don't use the official names for columns 1, 2 and 3. Column 3 is usually called the past participle. This is not helpful. In fact, it's really stupid. We've just seen column 3 used for past, present, and future. Now, the only reason I can see that English schools and examiners insist on making you learn this rubbish is to slow you down so they can justify more lessons, more exams, and make more money. So, as promised, let's look a little more closely at to be. Now, when we looked at it, Davno temu, I mentioned very briefly that sometimes we need to use the ing form of to be. I was not joking. I was being serious. Now, it's not really necessary when we're using the active voice in other verbs, but sometimes if we're using to be by itself, it can be useful. It's also often helpful when we want to be precise in the passive. So if the accountants are discussing finances right now, then finances are being discussed. If Mateusz was driving you to the airport at 7 p.m, then at 7 p.m, you were being driven to the airport. It's unusual to see the other tenses of to be in this form, have been, being, will be being, etc. The two examples we've just looked at, those are the useful ones. Now, I know this is not specific to English, but have you ever stopped to think why the passive is necessary? What's it for? Why can it be very useful? I've discussed this with students on many occasions, and I'd like to share a few things that have come out of those discussions. Firstly, let's look at a phrase which uses the active voice. You have damaged the car. In this phrase, you in Polish is in case one. So the emphasis is on you and what you did to the car, you idiot. You, the subject, have done the verb to damage to the object, the car. Now, if we write the passive version of this, then we get the car has been damaged. Okay, it's still not good news, but the emphasis has changed. The car is now the subject. It's case one. It is what we're talking about, not you. So one of the things that the passive is very useful for is depersonalizing events and actions. So changing the emphasis from the actor to the action. This makes it very useful for negotiators who want to base their arguments on facts, not personalities. Diplomats who want to talk about difficult subjects without making accusations. Customer service departments. Politicians and people trying to keep out of an argument about whose fault it is that their damn car is damaged all make use of the passive voice. It makes it more difficult for people to claim that you are accusing them of something. Of course, there is a particular type of language that relies on the passive almost entirely, and that is the language of contracts. Take a look at a contract between companies. As soon as you get past the point where the companies are named, the whole thing is usually written in the passive. In fact, many legal documents avoid being personal in this way. The obvious exception to this is the last will and testament, where the language is active from start to finish. However, a word of warning. Many people use the passive too much when they're making presentations at work, particularly to bosses or potential customers. If you're using English in a business or political context, this very quickly sounds like you are trying to avoid responsibility for the thing you are talking about. This can make you look weak, nervous. and therefore difficult to trust or believe. Okay, it's your turn. Here is a story written using only the active voice. Pause the video and then turn it into a report written in the passive. The answer will be at the beginning of the next video.